Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the Dealer Insights podcast, where we go under the hood, bumper to bumper, and just about everywhere in between, discussing topics important to dealers of all types and sizes. Your time is valuable, so thanks for riding along for this episode of Dealer Insights.
Welcome back to Dealer Insights with your hosts, Sean and Vinny. How's it going, Vinny?
Good, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. It's almost Christmas time. Can you believe it?
I know. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.
I know. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. All the things. Happy Merry
holidays.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is that time of year where, it's just like I was saying to you just before we started, it sneaks up on you really, really fast. So yeah. What do you remember about the dealership this time of year when you were in retail?
Well, I have a long history with it. So, this week is, it's funny. We're talking about what it costs the BDC. This week, the leads start to come in. The last week of the season is really crazy busy. And I think a lot of people outside the industry don't realize. But, a lot of business owners and people wanting to spend money before the end of the year and Black Friday sales and all that kind of stuff. Or whatever it's called. I don't know. What's the day after Christmas called?
I don't know.
They have some kind of sales.
Recovery?
Anyway, the last week is a very, very busy week in the auto industry. And then January is like a screaming halt. But you know what? The last 4 years have been pretty good in January for some reason.
Yeah. Always an interesting time of year. You and I have actually spent some time close right before Christmas, even doing like road shows. Remember that back in the day?
Yeah, no kidding.
I got snowed in New York.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was fun with the snowstorm.
Yeah.
We have a long history, you and I, and it's been a great friendship and really great to continue, continuing to share dialogue and information. It's awesome. There aren't too many people that I speak with that have been around me this long to understand what we really do here. So,
well, it's certainly fun, and I'm loving doing these Dealer Insights podcasts with you because it's fun to actually find the voice of Strolid and really the passion that you have for this part of the car business. And it's so in demand. It's so needed, and it will continue to be so. All the changes that people are talking about that are coming and that are upon us now, none of those things will be, easy for a dealer to navigate, and especially won't be easy to navigate if they don't understand these components that we've been talking about around a customer lifecycle center, which is really like dissecting BDC. And so today's episode, for everybody in the audience, watching, listening, or both, we're really kind of digging in a little bit more on the costs. A lot of dealers get into what's it going to cost me to put up a BDC or remodel my BDC? And there are some of the obvious costs of, hey, we got to have space. We have to have various technology. Personnel ends up being a big one. And I want to ask you a few questions. Actually, I want a handful of questions to get your thoughts on some of that today around, what's it cost to build and manage and maintain? Because a lot of people, they either don't do it or they give up on it or they don't see the value in it. And then they also don't consider the options that are available that make it so much easier for a dealer to do this. And that's one of the big things that you guys offer. So first thing I'm like, tell me your thoughts on like space. What are the considerations if you want to have, and what's a traditional like size of a BDC? And then what does a dealership have to think about in terms of, can I even find a place to have this apartment set up? What's that look like? And what's the cost of something like that?
Yeah. So we work with some dealers now that signed up with us because they didn't have the space, right? They're older, filled up with accounting and service and parts and all that. And they didn't have really much space to put in the BDC. I think really the challenge for dealers, if I was to start off with what it cost, is to determine how important and how valuable lead handling is to you. Are you prepared to manage a process using salespeople, using a BDC, using the cradle to grave, the outsourced. Can't forget that one.
Yeah.
And the funny story about why I decided to start Strolid is because I did this for a big group.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been through a lot of training, whether it be phone or sales training, and there wasn't really a lot of lead management training, though, which is kind of interesting. The CRM companies send people out to train people on how to use the CRM. I can tell you, of course, I'm a humble person, so I hate to say stuff like this, but my people can train our dealers on what they're doing right and wrong within a CRM better than I think the CRM companies can do for other dealers at this point. And, we have integrations with Dealer Socket now, with the API integration with Dealer Socket, Vin Solutions, eLead, and now Techion. And they're in it every day, setting up all kinds of different things, like workflows and templates and rules and all kinds of, we have a templated kind of like approach to how we set up a CRM. That way there, it's very consistent from all the dealers we use on how we touch customers and all that. That is way understated. What I just said, Sean, is like, yeah, you can put somebody in a room and tell them, go BDC for me, go do the internet for me. Yeah. But there's so much more to it if you want it done right. So what is done right? Well, the reason I liked BDCs, because I'm a sales guy, mm-hmm. is that they do a lot of things within the CRM for me as a salesperson to make sure it's all done in a consistent manner. And I'm a data guy. So at the end of the day, if it's all done consistently, now I have data to look at that's consistent. And I can make decisions on marketing. I can make decisions on how well my sales process is running based on our close ratios and our show ratios and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that stuff gets I don't know. I don't want to, I hate being negative, but a lot of dealers manipulate that information in the dealerships to make their numbers look good and stuff like that. I never was that guy. I want to make the numbers look exactly the way they should look. There's always a margin of error in data, but the data itself is why I love BDC. And the fact that I know I can train people to follow a process in a BDC better than I can train salespeople. That's one of the reasons I was so high on BDC all these years. But what does it cost? Well, which form are we talking about? Because if you use a salesperson, right? Mm-hmm. Or salespeople to handle leads, that is what dealers consider to be the least expensive way to do it.
Yeah.
I just had a friend of mine who really close friend of mine, whose dealership was bought up by a dealer group, who unfortunately is suffering from cancer. As you know, you and I have been hit hard with that C word. Mm-hmm. And he called me for some help. He hadn't been in the dealership for 2 months because he's going through all kinds of treatment and stuff. So it wasn't far from me. So I drove up because I wanted to see him anyway, see how he's doing. And he asked me, he's like, listen, I want to put you in the store. We have a good relationship. That's what relationship's all about, by the way, Sean, is when you don't have to sell yourself, someone wants to work with you.
Yeah.
Because they trust you.
Yep.
Anyway, I looked at his he's using salespeopeople. I think he's got like 15 salespeople and he's selling 150 cars a month, which is about right. You want to have 10 sales per salesperson, whatever. But I looked at his CRM and he's doing a great job. His GSM's got it together. He's got it figured out. Like the follow-up was getting done. I shopped him. I got responded to. And I just told him, like, why would you want to put me in? And he's like, he was so happy I was being honest with him. Like, of course I'm going to be honest with you. I'm honest with everybody. I don't want to work with you if we can't help you.
Right.
Like, and not to say we couldn't do a little bit better of a job, but I'm going to disrupt that whole process that guy's put together internally. Now, what are the challenges with that, right? Well, he could quit or go somewhere else, take salespeople with him, salespeople quit, whatever. It's hard to maintain that. I think that's one of the number one reasons why you might want to consider a BDC. So you got that, right? Like a salesperson. So there's some studies out there about sales process that say if you do not follow a process within the CRM, meaning you answer timely, you follow up, you utilize all the tools within the CRM, you train all your staff on how to handle the customer when they arrive and all that kind of stuff. There are lots of studies that say if you're not like using a CRM, I guess, or if you're not managing all that, you'll lose 30% of your business. You'll miss out on 30% of your business. Now, some people could argue, well, I do it. Maybe they don't do it right. So maybe they're missing out on 20% of their business. Maybe they're missing out on 15% of their business. But to put a number to that, when you talk about cost, let's say you're not following a consistent process and maybe you got 10 salespeople. The old rule is 20% of your sales staff makes up 80% of your sales. Why is that? Well, the 80% usually makes up, I saw another study recently said 39% of people in sales didn't intend to be in sales, which I thought was interesting. But also, did you know that 13% of all the jobs in the U.S. are sales-related positions? 13%. So there's a lot of sales jobs. So when you're looking for a job, there's a couple of things I think people think about. Well, I don't need a college education, and I can make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. The challenge with that is
the car business.
The challenge with that is not everybody's cut out to sell. And I am a firm believer that your top performers are natural salespeople, and those people follow a process, whether you train it to them or not.
Yeah.
They understand, customer courtesy and a meet and greet is important, and listening and active listening like you're doing right now, nodding your head when I'm talking and all that kind of stuff. Natural salespeople do, but not everybody's a natural salesperson. So that's why you get the 20%. Why am I saying all that? Well, if 20% of your sales force is really good, what happens to the other 80% of the leads?
Good question.
When they're either bad salespeople, average salespeople, or new salespeople, because that's usually what makes up the 80, and the turnover and everything. So you're never going to get like all your salespeople following a consistent process unless you got it dialed in, like this guy I was telling you about that I went up to visit does.
Yeah. Well, and how much did he have to have really deeply appreciated the fact when we're talking about costs, that you're saving him money, right? How many times does somebody not have a friend, a person in their trust circle that they can ask for that type of help? So they have to ask somebody that they think is an expert and they think and they expect will be telling them the truth. But that person is really just going to be trying to figure out how they take more money, which is cost. And in that case, in that scenario, would be unnecessary cost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
everything's about outcomes, Sean. What is the outcome you're looking for? And if it is consistent customer experience, consistent customer approach, you're going to have trouble doing it with the sales team. I'm not saying you can't, because clearly I just explained that. Yeah, it's funny. I'll say things like, you should really consider outsourcing your BDC. Oh, I would never outsource my BDC. They wouldn't care about my customers. That's, okay, fine. That's how you feel. But it's like saying, all of a certain type of race of people are bad. You know what I mean? Or people from this religion are all bad. It's like, give me a break. Like, we have 160 customers. Like, we can't be that bad. If dealers aren't stupid, they're very smart, actually. They run businesses every day, and they see pros and cons to working with us. The dealers have been with us a long, long time, see a lot of pros, thank God, and we work hard to continue to provide a really high level of service to them. I'm not saying every BDC out there is as good as we are. I'm sure there are some, but there are some people that do it internally that do really well. There's some people that do it at like a centralized within a dealer group that do it really well. There are probably some people out there that do it better than we do. I would say not many.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to think of, I don't know. You can definitely have a very unique approach to helping dealers in this manner. I mean, when you consider all the different cost mechanisms that go into being a BDC, there's the space, But right now, there's probably been a lot of people like, man, look at all the extra space we have in the dealership right now, right? We don't have this same kind of inventory, so we've got some extra space. Let's put up a BDC. Doesn't mean that was a great idea just because you had the space. But then there's also the technology side. And, you guys are literally wholesale. You don't even have to worry about the technology. But for a dealer who decides, we want to try to do some of this on our own.
You got to hand it to them, right? You got to give them credit for wanting to try it.
Yeah.
On their own.
Yeah. Because it's like, well, do we need any different widgets for how people are going to use their phones or how they're going to use communication technology, period? Is our CRM actually supportive enough for the different ways that people are coming through versus, like comparing a messenger approach versus somebody that texted the dealership versus somebody that dropped the form on the website. So, and people that are
I look at technology as a way to streamline our business, Sean. A way to make our business run smooth, smoother.
But you built
eliminate minutia in that. But the real trick isn't so much the technology as it is training people to do their job. Like, for example, a script. I've had arguments with people. Oh, you don't want to be scripted today. It's like, whatever. They have no idea what scripting actually is. Because most actors, if you were to watch them on stage or a comedian, they're scripted. Mm-hmm. You would never know it, but they're scripted. They can't just walk out every time and do the same show over and over again without having some type of script. So, remember I mentioned natural salespeople?
Yeah.
I've had some natural salespeople over the years working for me in the BDC that are just so good. You know what I tell my managers? Lay off of them. Stop beating on them about using the script. They get appointments. Who cares? And if you listen to their conversation, it's really cordial. It's very empathetic. They're people person. They're listening. They're active listening. They may not just use our words, but when you take somebody that's junior green pea sales guy and you don't want to give them a script, God bless you.
Yeah,
God bless you.
Think about it. There's a lot of people,
but that's hard to train.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the best develop if they don't have that, like you were talking about, natural born kind of salesperson, and they're kind of clicking off of a process already naturally. It's them. For the ones that don't have that, there are people that you can train. You can give them skill building exercises that make them really good, and scripting is a big part of that. So, and in a joke,
I used to have a mentor, Lee Marin.
Scripts.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Even our president uses scripts.
Of course. Everybody does.
He even
anyone that's any good.
Repeat the line a few months ago. I felt bad for him.
So I give you two quotes. One from my mentor, Lee D. Marinville, from a sales training perspective. The guy was an amazing trainer. He used to say, you have 1.7 seconds to respond to a customer, or you appear to be incompetent to them. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true. And then Grant Cardone used to say, amateurs wing it, professionals have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love those two lines because, like, anyone who wants to argue with me about scripting, I would love to get on a podcast and argue with you, because there's so many people out there, and they're usually young, and they don't like to be told what to do, and they feel like they're being canned and all this other stuff. It's like, well, okay, let's hear how you sound when I ask you questions. And if there's a lot of like, God bless you, you're gonna stumble your way into figuring it out, maybe, or you're gonna quit because you're gonna get so frustrated or whatever. Like, I would rather train people the right way,
For sure.
We have a line here, Sean, and you know this because you helped me with this during our training. We don't hire people and train them to be nice. We hire nice people.
That's right. Yeah. Start with the right stuff in the beginning. Yeah.
No, just be nice.
How do you train people to be nice, right? I mean,
no, you can't.
Right.
That's in their DNA.
Yeah.
That's like how they're wired. Like, I'm not a psychiatrist. Like, I can't go and rewire them to start smiling every day if they're miserable all the time.
Right.
Like, it's like craziness.
And some people
But
might
anyway,
even think that's kind of well, why would Strolid want to just be hiring nice people? If you think about the costs of BDC, not having nice people is absolutely going to cost you, right? Time, training, the way they deliver, the way they handle people. It's
in full disclosure, Sean, we weren't always as good as we are in terms of hiring and training. COVID actually helped us. We're going to do another podcast on our recruiting process because I think dealers would love to hear that.
Yeah.
However, my dad works for us and he listens to the call. So like, let's say we have 100 agents working for us. He used to call it the swamp. He's a Trump guy, right? He'd be like, we got to clean up the swamp. And I'm like, what's the swamp? He's like, we got like 15, 20 of these people that just got to go. They're just not doing a great job. Mm-hmm. And he was right. Always, because he's a car guy. He's been in the business 40-something years, and he's a natural salesperson. My dad never took a sales training class, but everyone loves him. He smiles all the time. He nods. He listens. He's a sales guy, and
he knows his boxing too. Your dad
knows his boxing too. Yeah. There's no question he knows his boxing. But my point for bringing that up is, we don't have a swamp anymore. Like maybe one or two out of 130 people we have working for us that we're always, we got to keep our eye on. Maybe a few here and there, but we're keeping our eye on them. Like, how does a dealer keep their eye on the BDC while they're selling cars and doing all that? Well, okay, they need a BDC manager. So this is where it gets the cost. Since we're talking about cost, this is where the rubber meets the road. Dealer, I just spoke with a dealer in Wisconsin, great dealer. And they're like, Vin, I really believe in the concept of BDC, but I've been trying them for so many years, and we get them running and then they fall apart, blah blah blah. And I feel his pain because like I see and hear that all over the place. So it is a good concept, but getting it to work within your dealership is difficult. It's most difficult if you have a single point store and you want a BDC.
Why is that?
Because through tons and tons of research, like I spent a lot of time with the CFO at the last big dealer group I worked at, trying to break down the cost of centralizing the BDC versus having dealers do it in-house. And so we came to the conclusion that you need 4 people in a dealership, regardless of how big or small you are. So we'll talk about the financial aspect of what it costs to run a BDC. So let's say you sell 100 cars per month in a dealership, just for round numbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, a good job. Well, first of all, his other comment to me, the CFO, was if you can get your cost of sale under $200 per sale, then you're doing a good job and it's worth the money. So you're selling 100 cars a month. Let's say the BDC makes up 40% of that, which is a good number. It's a decent number. That means you're doing a pretty good job with your BDC, and you got 4 people. 40 sales times $200 is what? $8,000. How do you pay 4 people $8,000?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So that's why the idea behind the central BDC and the big groups climb onto that is because it is more cost effective than having each dealership run it independently.
Yeah.
We come in typically around 2/3 of what it costs them to do it internally, which comes in under that $8,000 usually, much, much under. So it's very cost effective to use us. But if you're a group, it would be cost effective for you to do it as a centralized deal so the dealers can share in on the costs, and you don't have to have 4 for each dealership. You might have something like 10 for, 8 dealerships. Yeah. Or 12 for, 10 dealerships or something like that, depending on the size. Obviously, it varies too, because like a big dealership can support a BDC financially.
Yeah.
For it to make sense.
If the brand is red hot or the models that brand is currently offering, if they're red hot, that, can have factors. If you go on a PT Cruiser streak, right. You have those anomalies at times as well. So,
but what is, I want to just finish that off by saying, the cost is that that's not the only important thing to a dealer, because you're going to get a lot of BDC people out there and BDC managers and salespeople saying, well, I still wouldn't outsource it because it's, you don't care about our customers like we do and blah, blah, blah. So what's the outcome you're looking for? That's what I would ask every dealer out there. What outcomes are you looking for? Because to me, as a business owner, when someone fills out a form for our company, I want to make sure we respond to it rapidly. And we got a lead yesterday from a dealer in Vermont. We called him within 5 minutes. The dealer picked up, and we had a really great conversation with him. I didn't do it, like Kayla, who works for me, did. Now what? We listen. We try to find out what their needs are. The guy asked price. We'll give you a price. He asked us how long, and he said, you and I were talking about this offline about the decks and how detailed they are.
Yeah.
BDC is very complicated, and now that we're doing the customer lifecycle stuff, it took us 7 years of just getting the BDC right on the sales side, because it's the hardest part before we ventured out to service and then outbound. But the customer lifecycle to me is like, you as a dealer, what outcome do I want? I want to make sure every one of those touch points is a good experience for my customer, that they get responded to quickly. They get messaging to them timely at the right time, instead of all the time. Like we might have a dealer call us and say, we want you to call all of our customers every month. It's like, no,
right.
That makes no sense. And it's going to cost you way too much money. Let's do it. Let's do it in a smart way. Like if I was a dealer, so not only do I have all the incoming traffic, whether it be sales or service, being answered quickly and professionally and listened to, forget about the dealer cost, forget about the BDC, forget about the salesperson. Think about that customer. You call a dealer and you get put on hold, you get put in someone's voicemail, a receptionist takes a message, and then you never hear back. What kind of experience is that?
It's terrible.
It's terrible. And even if you do it, like remember I said the 80-20 rule, and you get 20% good and 80% bad. Even if you accomplish that well 20% of the time, is that good enough?
Yeah.
Think about see what I'm focusing on though is the outcome. Is that outcome good enough for you? Well, the others aren't so bad. Okay, so maybe 50% of the time you respond quickly. Is that good enough for you? At the end of the day, Sean, we're a labor charge. We're trying to utilize technology to make it more efficient for our internal operations, so we can speak with more customers and not have to press buttons and manually send this and manually do that and all that kind of crap that goes on with the CRM. So
that's an interesting way of categorizing your business, because it truly is labor costs. But I might add, it's skilled. Obviously, it's a skilled labor investment, because you can't just take anybody and make them do that job effectively. And the dealers, when you're using this example of like, well, what outcomes do the dealers want? And they're like, well, I'm skeptical because you want to treat my customer the way I would treat my customer. It's like, yeah, it's almost sometimes like, what season is the dealership in? Like if things are going really well and they've got a lot of activity and a lot of customers to follow up with, like, okay, great. Then the biggest priority for them might be, I just need to make sure that we're connecting with those people in a timely fashion. It doesn't even have to be perfect. I just need it to be good enough. But timely. it can't be 10 days later, or it can't be a day later, or whatever. But the dealer who's like, living high on the hog, everything's going great, it's all fantastic, and then all of a sudden that changes for whatever market conditions, but inventory shortages, and now they have more time on their hands. Now they might answer your question. Well, the best outcome for me is I want our customer experience process to be really, really great, because they have time to think about the experience that they deliver to the customer. When the real answer is, it's kind of always all those things. That's why it's kind of interesting that you guys have this approach now of, in your logo of this, life cycle of all these really important components. And I think for some people, they're like, what are you guys talking about? Customer life cycle center? It's kind of it's a term that's been used in other industries, not so much in automotive, but it fits really well with these extracts of what it costs and how it isn't easy to BDC. It is something that some people, I think, are very trivial and they're thinking about, and they don't break down. You just said something a couple minutes ago. Your dad doesn't work for you for free. And I know your dad, so I like to talk boxing with him and MMA and stuff too, but your dad is experienced in the car business. So not only is he a hawk to make sure that what your customers, what your dealers are getting is better than what they could do themselves.
He's not the only one, by the way. We have 4 other people that work with him,
but his experience and having that person in your business, that's a cost that the dealership doesn't have to pay, but it's a value they're absolutely getting, right?
And they should pay for that. And here's the problem. I had a very good friend of mine who runs a big group down in the South Shore, well, kind of like Metro West of Boston, and
they've got good beefs.
No, the beefs are on the North Shore.
North Shore beef.
So it was so funny because he's so like Boston and like direct. And he'd be like, Vin, I would fire you in a second if every BDC manager didn't walk in here $150,000 a year. But they do, especially in the big groups. They want to get paid. They should get paid, especially if they're doing everything the way I'm asking. It comes down to, is it cost effective? Is it affordable? Can you find a better solution, to get making sure that every single call that comes in gets called, texted, and emailed, and then followed up. With happy people, right? I can go on and on about what we've built, but the most important part for me, if you ask a dealer why they wouldn't consider an outsourced BDC, one of the first things they're going to come out of their mouth, and it just happened to me a few days ago, control. Right? And so, well, how much control do you have right now? Because I shopped your dealer and no one answered me. Right. Or it took for a while, and believe me when I tell you, there's a lot of good dealers out there doing a really good job. But the control part really cracks me up because we have a process. We focus on it. We have trainers. Like I said, my dad's part of a team of 5 that not only trains new hires, but sits with them. And we have team leaders on top of that are there for them when they're new to keep them up to speed and to listen to their calls and to make sure that they're on point. And sure that we make mistakes, right? But that's what a BDC manager should be doing in the dealership. How much? You got to pay them.
Yeah.
Who would want to do that all day long for 1 or 2 or 5 dealerships? It's hard work. Believe me, I did it years. It's not easy. So we always laugh like when new companies pop up. And like, I just hope they don't give us and the people that have been around and really do a good job a bad name because they just, learning the ropes. We've been doing this for 27 years. But I laugh because, like, man, go try and all of our marketing, Sean, going forward is going to be about my people. I mean, I got two of my top people in operations have been with me 20 years. My head trainer has been with me 17 years. One of my client success directors has been with me 13 years. The other one's been with me 9. And there's 2 new ones that have been with us for 3 or 4 years. But I have managers out in the BDC that have been with me for 10 to 15 years. Like, we're going to start promoting that because when you talk about control, they're going to pick up the phone and when we communicate every single opportunity to the desk as it happens. So like, how much more control do you want than that? And you know what's funny about the control piece is we send all these hot alerts over to them and they know I'm like a stickler about it. Like, sometimes they're sitting there for like 2 hours. We're like, this customer wants to buy a car, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And that's what my client success team does. We'll stay, hey, look at the TOs aren't getting responded to. We call them TOs because that's an industry term, turnover. But like, the customer wants to do business on the phone. They want more information. And we can't get an appointment. We send it right over to them. So like, what more would you want? What more control would you want? And you know what one of the guys' answers was to me the other day? He said, well, when a customer asks if there's a dent on the side of the car because they couldn't really tell in the picture, my BDC can run outside and look at it. Oh, God. How often does that happen?
Yeah, that's pretty. When you consider the fact that those same
and that would be a TO, by the way.
Right. Somebody would have their hand out looking for a commission on something on that. When you think about, and it's always important for you and I in our episodes to, state this once or twice. We're absolutely pro dealer, on the side of the dealer first, always,
100%.
always. But, every once in a while, it's like, you gotta take your own medicine. If you're gonna try to hide behind, I want control, or I want whatever your thing is at that moment, there are people who are experts that want nothing more than to help you. And in doing so, when you say, well, I got to have control, there are a lot of experts that might say, hey, could I peek into your CRM? And you just look at kind of how the CRM's BDC staff is kind of reconciling deals. And all of a sudden you see how, most of these guys will have BDCs that they say they want control, they want visibility, that literally they are not paying attention to what's going on inside of that BDC. And BDC is maybe just absolutely robbing them blind.
You can't be a sales manager today, or a used car manager, or a GSM, and pay attention to the BDC all day and do what you need to do all day. There's just too much to do. And
is it not dangerous to have, well, I've got a BDC, and you are on under the false I guess pretense that BDC is doing its right thing, but no one knows how to, like you were just said, no one knows how to inspect it, not just to find out if the BDC representatives themselves are actually doing a good job and working the process the way they're supposed to, but are they doing things that are a bit nefarious in the CRM that no one knows exactly what they're doing, because there's not really an effective or a realistic, sustainable pay plan, or there aren't any rules or very specific process rules on what counts as a real valid appointment set or where it came from. There's all these other things that end up as cost factors that the dealership doesn't even know.
I was listening to a podcast from this woman CEO, and I loved how she put it. When I was a VP, she said, my CEO would tell me, I need this done right away. And he would load her up with work. And her response she changed her response to him. Instead of just doing everything he asked her to do, her response would be, okay, what other work would you like me to neglect so I could do this, get this done for you? Because I am busy, right? But I had a deal. You know what a manifest list is? The OEM will just drop a manifest list. There might be like 8,000 people on it that own or whatever, 2,000 people that own a Nissan Maxima or Altima or whatever. Yeah. And the manufacturer sends it and says, oh, have your salespeople call this list.
Because they're all in the market.
Do you know how long that takes? What are you going to stop doing so you can do that? And so I had a dealer a couple of weeks ago say to me, well, so if I get a manifest list, I can just send it your way and you'll call all of them? And I was like, no. We can call them for you, but we're going to charge you for that. Not because Vin wants to make a lot of money. It's because it costs money to call 2,000 people. Take somebody's time. Time is money, Sean, right? So we have it really so streamlined, a lot of the processes, that there's no way a dealer could do it cheaper than us. Or without overpaying for like a BDC manager and adding additional staff and all that. So think about this, Sean. I said 4 people is a minimum. So if you're a 100 car a month store and you're getting, let's say 400 leads, you still need 4 people, right? Why? Because people have days off. I mean, unless you think they're going to work 7 days a week. You're open 12 hours a day. So when you add up all those hours and you take those 4 people, you're going to have times where the person's by themselves and there might be 2 or 3 leads coming at the same time. You're never going to respond to all of them fast.
Yeah.
So even 4 isn't really good. I mean, for a small store, yeah. But just for coverage purposes, you need 4 people. Because I'm sure people are going to ask me why 4, right? Now, if you're getting 1,000 leads a month, yeah, 4 people would be sufficient, maybe even 5, maybe even a manager. But 1,000 lead a month store, is typically, selling somewhere in the neighborhood of 250, 300 cars, which isn't the average, right? The average dealership selling probably around 125 cars, new and used cars a month. That's average, right? There's some that sell 800, right? And there's some that sell 50.
Yeah.
But But at the end of the day, every business should want every opportunity responded to professionally and quickly and urgently, with trained people.
Yeah. And so to add on, piggyback on that, trained people, the personnel factor around costs of BDC, that we're talking about here, it's not quite as cut and dry as I've heard some other people say. I mean, you're talking about how many people are necessary. So that's a cost factor, and what the average, BDC rep make, across the country. I'm sure it's different in, rural Alabama versus, Chicago. So there's going to be some variance, but that's why they're averages. But how many people do you need? What's the average, comp plan that you have to lay out for those people? Are you going to staff a BDC, or do you need to staff a BDC with people that are just reps, or do you need a manager? Right?
I'm going to guess that the average BDC rep in the country makes somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000 a year, average. I'm sure there's some that make a lot more and some make a lot less.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a quick example. We don't make our people work more than 40 hours, but we have plenty of coverage. We have team leaders. We have management that oversees everything to make sure that if someone's off and one of their customers responds, that somebody's responsive back, and yada, yada, yada. And we have groups and they work together, and yet. But, at the end of the day, Sean, how on earth, at $45,000 a year, how on earth can you make somebody work 60 hours a week or 50 hours a week and expect them to stay? This is part of our challenge with turnover. Or you dump a manifest list on top of them and they're paid to get appointments, and that manifest list, you're getting voicemail after voicemail after voicemail after voicemail. And they want to make money. This is very, very underappreciated. So when I say we only make them work 40 hours a week, it's a tough job. They're on the phone all day long for 8 hours a day. 40 hours is even a lot. Here's the thing. I had a kid who used to work for me who came to me for a job. So I showed him our comp plan. And he's like, well, can I be manager for you? And I'm like, well, yeah, you could, but you need to come in and follow along for a while, do really well, and you'll be a manager before you know it. We're a growing company. Anyway, he came to work for me. And like a month later, he came into my office. He's like, I got to leave. And I'm like, why? He's like, you're just not paying me enough. I was making $60,000, $65,000 as a BDC person at this dealership. I was like, okay. Did you have a team? Did you have a did you have a team of trainers that worked with you every day? Did you have a team of managers that helped you? That did you work for you? Did you have a team that answered your leads for you? Did you, how many hours a week did you work? And he was like, well, I was working like 50, 55 hours a week. So I get the calculator out. I'm like, okay, 60 grand, 55 hours a week. Like, he was making the same amount of money, but he was just working 40 for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just cuckoo, but that's how people look at it. Like, at the dealer level, it just the more you work, the more money you make. Okay, great. But there's a dollar cost average there, like after a while, it's like the law of diminishing return. I'm putting in more hours, but I'm not necessarily seeing that on the other end. And by the way, over 40 hours, you should be getting time and a half and all that kind of stuff. So my point is, like, I don't want to burn my people out, but there's opportunities for them to grow here with us, and they know that. And some of them are very content just doing the job, and some of them want opportunities. And it's my responsibility to them and to my company and to all my people to grow the company the right way, so I can provide them with opportunities. Yeah. And I think that's the way a really good business should run. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make, Sean, is that when you talk about salary and pay, what's the outcome that you're looking for? Are you looking for money? Are you looking for quality of life? Are you looking for a company to grow with? Or what are you looking for as an employee? And I tell my employees all the time, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't read your mind. But if you want opportunities, make sure you let me know, and let Shauna and let Anthony and Derek and Josh and Rob know. And Thomas, if you want. We've promoted a couple people to our IT team that had IT experience, but they came in as BDC people. So why am I telling you all this? Well, frankly, career path is what we offer at Strolid. That's one of the reasons why we have such a strong crew. Everybody's, sees the growth as an opportunity.
How many dealerships do you think of the BDC as that's the first place you come in? Like, that's where you're going to be familiarized with the business. That's where you're going to get the training that, would be the place that you start if you want to be a regular floor salesperson, or if you want to get into sales management or whatever, the BDC. You think there are a lot of dealers that think that way? Because it seems like a BDC, the people that you have are people that literally end up with such a wealth of kind of a broad, it just seems really
So I used to think a long time ago that there were differences between the BDC and the salespeople. There were different types of people, but I was wrong. I think the BDC type people are what is needed for future. I think the traditional sales guy, it's not as needed as it used to be. I think people that are educated, that can answer questions, that can be responsive through different media channels, different, omni-channel, whatever you want to call it, like email, text, Facebook Messenger, Google My Business, phone calls, right? I think I told you the story before, but the CEO of Group One asked me to go to New York City one time to speak to all these French dealers, and he wanted me to talk about our process. So I did, but there was a guy from Capgemini there speaking before me. So I was interested. Capgemini is a big research firm, and interested in what he was going to talk about. And so he started talking about the dealer of the future. This was in 2009. And he showed, a couple of things I don't think came true, but one of the things he showed was the salesperson of the future basically doing what you and I are doing right now. With the headset on, in front of a computer, talking to a customer. So when I got up and explained what I was doing for the company, he was blown away, like that we were already kind of moving towards that. This is where this is why I laugh about when people talk about the car business and it needs to evolve, or it's like it has evolved.
Yeah.
It has evolved quite a bit. There are certain functional things that are wrong, systemic things that are wrong within a dealership because it's like passed from, great-grandfather to grandfather to father to son, and they just learn from each other. But overall, I mean, look at the marketing has changed quite a bit.
Oh, boy.
I mean, when I started, you had to come to Saturday morning meetings with a Boston Globe in your hand so you could go over the ads.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the last time I bought a Boston Globe. No offense, Boston Globe, but I mean, I don't know.
I think it's still good to wrap fish in.
Nothing, but my daughter, like 4 years ago, I used to get blown away. She would be on YouTube all the time watching stuff instead of TV. You know what I do now? I watch different people I like on YouTube all the time instead of watch TV.
Oh my goodness, I could totally railroad the podcast on this. My wife hates it. I do the same thing. There's so much stuff I watch on YouTube because it's like all of my interests, whether it's business or the things that I like that are my hobbies, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so you and I both, because we're around the same age, almost exactly the same age, we grew up listening to a lot of the same music and a lot of those 70s and 80s rock bands.
Oh yeah,
right. Some of them.
One of my favorite things on YouTube is. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I cut you off. Well,
that stuff's so easy to find on YouTube. So some of those bands that are still out there, doing it or finding their old stuff, but just take that and just think anything you want. YouTube is, man.
I love our generation of music, and even into the 70s rock and stuff, and Rolling Stones and Zeppelin and stuff like that. And one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube is these two black kids on Twins Trend, it's called. Mm-hmm. And now I got a couple others, this Lex and Brad, and this other, like, all they do is like kind of for the first time they're listening to certain music, reactions to it. Yeah. I freaking love it. I just sit there and like watch them get blown away. The Cartier family, I think it's called. Like I get blown away watching them because it makes me laugh. And like I try getting my kids, my Nick actually, he's not a kid anymore, but he's going to be 25 in February. he knows all my music because he had to listen to it all the time. And he'll go to like his friends' parents' parties and they're playing some of my music and he knows them and his friends are like, how do you know this song?
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty funny. I know, but I enjoy that. That's one, you just brought it up when you talk about old music. That's why it made me think of it. I just sit there and crack up at their reactions because it is good music. You know?
Yeah, it is. And YouTube is that portal into just about anything we want, you know, my wife gets super irritated because I go in and I listen to go and watch all this stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. And music is a big part of that, but there's so much other stuff on there. I mean, YouTube, the amount of content, I mean, when we film these episodes, we put them in to your YouTube channel and people could go and watch the video episodes. We cut pieces of this that we think will be shorter, bite-sized pieces for somebody that maybe not ready to listen to the full 30, 40, or maybe a 60-minute episode, but they'll get a little 2-minute piece that's like, we'll cut these really valuable pieces out. Where do we put a lot of that? We put that on YouTube. We take those videos and put them in social media. But yeah, it's powerful.
You know what's really cool too on YouTube is like if you ever want to go travel to a certain part of the world that you've never been to, and like before you get there, there's all kinds of video content on the area that you can almost plan out your whole trip. Like I would hate to be a travel agent nowadays.
Yeah,
like, it's just so easy to plan your own trip and figure out places to go and things like that. It's just amazing, and that's what I mean. We started talking. The reason we started talking about this is because of the evolution. And it has evolved. It hasn't been a revolutionary change like Wall Street wants with Carvana and all that. Like they wanted to just instantly change to a different experience, kind of like Amazon. And everybody gets excited about it because Amazon blew up. But I mean, Amazon, I'm buying like vitamins and stuff on Amazon or a pair of socks. Like I don't like going to the store for like socks and underwear. Like I know what I like. I just go on Amazon, buy it, right? Like toothpaste you can buy on Amazon. You can buy, electronics or whatever. But a car? It's just too complicated. Yeah. And for those of you listening and think, oh, I'm wrong. When was the last time you actually bought a car and watched the entire process go down? Like someone's evaluating the trade. And don't get me wrong, there's great trade tools out there. There's ways to do it. I'm just saying that. I'll give you one quick example. One of my good friends, he was a used car director for the whole East Coast for Group 1 when I worked for them. He used to say there's always another nickel in the trade. So a digital retailing tool can't do that. Yeah. Unless you want to max out every single trade value. Like he will, in other words, I'll bend 500 for any customer to put a deal together.
Yeah.
Or create chair exceptions. You're a 650 credit score and it's the to get to 700, you drop, your rate drops. And because I have a good relationship with the bank and you look like you're paying your car payment on time, I can talk to the bank and get them to give you an exception. You can't do that through a digital retailing tool. And there's so many other examples of that. Yeah. That why a digital so our goal is to like, listen, we're going to take care of you. We're not going to, we want to earn your business and yada, yada, yada. So we try to, schedule the appointment. It doesn't always work, but it still works. People still schedule appointments. Go figure.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just want an idea. They want a range, which we can do. We can send them to the digital retailing tool. We can send them to the trade tool with the understanding that it may not be exactly the way it turns out, right? There's all disclaimers and all that in there. So,
yeah. And there's a thing I'll speak for myself, but I think in doing so, I'm speaking for a lot of people. When it comes to buying a car, because of the cost of buying a car, it's one of the most expensive things we buy in our lifetimes. You and I have talked about this before. I think because of that fact, it's going to be a long time before the average person just wants to handle everything through a digital retailing tool or through the website and sight unseen and all these things. I think because it's such a significant purchase, there are so many variables to the vehicle. How does it feel? I'm a big guy, so am I going to feel good in that seat? I don't know. Yeah. Do I need a Tacoma or do I need the Tundra? Because I want a bigger truck. Well, I got to go sit in it. You talk about the experiences.
Fitting it is important, yeah. But
yeah, breaking down the experiences, you're just not gonna have a great experience if all of the technology enables you to do this, where I don't even have to talk to you people. I can just do all this stuff, and then you drop off a product that's very expensive, and then I'm not really ecstatic about it, or I'm not happy. And you could have in your process, well, you could have a 7-day return policy and all these things to have these safety nets. And I'm sure there are dealers that would want to argue. But the reality is that sometimes it's difficult if you're in retail and selling and operating a dealership. Like anything, we can get a little bit clouded in our ability to think like the regular consumer, the person who's like, I only make $70,000 a year. I got to make a really smart decision, and I can't just do all these technical things and know that that's going to be good enough. They're going to want to have a different experience, which is much more physical, close to the product, drive it around, all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And a dealership has to think, well, what does it cost us to make sure that we can provide experiences like that? Because the majority of people still want an experience like that.
Mm-hmm. So I'll do a little data experiment here. There are about roughly 40 million vehicles sold a year, new and used. Carvana sold, I think, 500,000 cars or something in a year. Let's just say that. I'm probably off, but if 2% of the population, the car buying population, is willing to buy a used car online, that's 800,000 used cars. Mm-hmm. If 4%, that's 1.6 million. I think their goal is to get to 4 million. So they're probably saying 10% of the people out there are willing to buy and it's a used car. It's all used, right? So let's just say that market is 10%. There's 4 million cars. What about the other 36 million cars? And now, will that grow to 20% over the years? I don't think so anymore, because they just filed Chapter 11. And I think they go into liquidation and all this other stuff. I think they're done. But I have to hand it to them. They made a gallant run at it. They spent a ton on advertising, and the process was pretty amazing. But the car business is just too complicated, in my opinion. And I'm never the one, you know this about me, Sean, to say never. So I'm not gonna say no one can do it. Tesla's doing it, but again, it's a small percentage of the population that's willing to buy a car online. Can they get to 4 million units? Maybe, because there's probably 10% of people out there that'll do it. But look at who buys Teslas, Sean. CEOs, rich people. Yeah. They probably have even 3 other cars. Matt Bauer says it best. Go drive into Walmart parking lot and look around and see how many Teslas you see.
Yeah. That's
America.
I live in a small town now, and a small Texas town. And mm-hmm. It's actually a really good example of very wealthy, and there's not a lot of that, but because it's a little lake, and it's a man-made lake here in Texas in Granbury. But there are people that either have really, really expensive homes that are on the water that are like, wow, or the majority of Granbury, which is people that are, work with their hands, ranch, farm. We don't have a Target in this town, right?
Right.
We don't have, major stores in this town. There's no mall, right? We have a Walmart, and the parking lot sucks. And judge me if you want, but I live in a small town, and it's pretty nice compared to the big town. There's very few Teslas in Granbury. I have a neighbor down the road from me, because he's really close to the lake, who has a Tesla. He doesn't even have the expensive one. He has the cheapest one you could get, the one that they did the $500 deposit, the 3, I think, the Model 3. He has that one. God
bless him. Yeah.
But he's a rarity in this little town. And I've never, ever seen a Tesla in the Walmart parking lot in Granbury, Texas, period.
I know we got to wrap up, but I'm gonna leave you with something I just heard recently that was really, really interesting. They polled all these kids in college. They asked them what percentage of the population is African American or Black, right? What do you think their answer was? 47%.
That was their answer?
Oh yeah. What percentage of the population is gay? 27%. Well, the real answer is it's 12% black, and it's 3% or 4% gay, I think, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The point I'm trying to make is the media makes it seem way different than what the reality is. Mm. So when all this talk about EV, everyone thinks, oh, EV, but the reality is a very small percentage of people are buying EV. They're talking about, emissions and all this kind of stuff. Right now, people are buying, I'm going to tell you right now, people are buying EV and they're buying hybrids and they're buying economical vehicles, but it's because of the gas prices.
Mm-hmm.
I seen it happen in 08 and 09 when gas prices went up. You couldn't keep a Prius in stock. Guess what? 4 years ago, you couldn't give away a Prius.
Right.
Before, when it was $2 a gallon. My point is the perception is different than reality a lot. And I bring up those two examples because I think it's fascinating what's going on in our world when it comes to the media and how it portrays the world or how they want the world to be portrayed. But what it really is completely different, And I think that's what's going on in Wall Street. Like they want to make it, if you can figure out a way to make a car buy purchase easier, then that's a home run. Yeah, it is, but it's the perception is different than reality.
Yeah,
everyone is buying their stock. It's like Bitcoin and all that stuff too, NFT. Like, what is the reality of that? What were people saying 2 years ago, and what are they saying now? What?
The stupid Trump cards that he was doing. Yeah. I thought it was a joke at first. I'm like, what is this?
It goes. He made $5 million on that.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Who is dumb enough to buy his digital trading?
He sold out because there's a lot of crazy Trump people out there, buddy. But he sold out in like a day. I heard.
Oh,
$5 million, and he donated all of it. God bless him. But
anyway, that's good.
The funny thing is, I'm not really a big into politics, but I am smart enough to read between the lines. I always tell my kids, believe half of what you see and all of what you actually hear. I mean, what you know.
Yeah.
Because
trust
what you're hearing and seeing isn't always what's actually the truth,
Yeah.
And that might also have to do with me being from Boston. Everybody's skeptical.
Yeah, I'll tell you that is definitely a factor, and not to be overly political. As far as politics go, for you and I and everybody in the car business, I think it's always important to really pay attention to any administration's posture relative to the industry that you work in, because it always changes. When Trump was in office, regulatory factors were very, very different, and it had an impact. Some would say good, some would disagree with that, but it had a different impact on the automotive industry than the Biden administration and their policy around green energy and EVs and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people take what they get off the surface, like you were talking about with media. And again, not to make it all political, but there's only a few companies that control the media that comes out.
I'll give you another example of that, Sean. I wanted to mention this, talk to you off the record anyway on this, but the Twitter files. I don't know if I don't think Elon Musk is a stupid person. Number one, I don't think he's doing it. I don't think he's spreading lies. I think he's really, literally letting loose of all the information that was being withheld. But if you Google Twitter files, none of the mainstream media is saying anything about it.
Yeah.
Now, how blatantly obvious is that? I had an argument with Thomas about that yesterday. I'm like, how blatantly obvious is that they're like trying to make sure no one hears this stuff? But do they realize how big Twitter it actually is? And the only one that's reporting on it is Fox News, and it's like nonstop Twitter file. News.
Yeah, it's
so transparent. It like, how could you, so you take all that in, right? And you try to find out what is really happening because you can't believe what you're hearing.
Well, it's also, I think maybe people just expected this, but also just this week, the recent drop on the CIA's involvement with the JFK assassination. That's like huge, and no one's even reporting on it or asking questions about it. I'd be like, well, I guess we know why those have been.
Are we old men now, Sean?
I think we are. We could probably have a secondary podcast called Grumpy Old Men, Grumpy Old Car Guys. But I don't know, probably a good place to park the episode. But the costs of BDC are real. And there's a reason why people dealers end up finding other solutions outside of trying to do it in-house. God bless you if you can do it in-house, but from, the easy part, which is probably where we're going to stuff all these BDC people as far as space goes, to which technology is your CRM good enough to handle it? Do you need to add some other widgets so that you can be faster and better in terms of providing the experience? But then it's literally a black hole when it gets to personnel, and do you have the right people? And like you talked about the role that your dad plays, which I hadn't even thought about until this episode, where I'm like, man, that is such a huge value add that comes as part of putting a real BDC together that's going to be effective. But we could go for so long on unwinding all the costs involved. But for dealers that are looking for, man, we really need to figure this out, and we need a solution that's almost like, YouTube is this amazing, like I can get everything I need there. Strolid's kind of like that. It's one of those solutions where you guys have kind of crafted the way you deliver the service in a way that it does give the dealer control. It does give the dealer insight. It does give the dealer the ability to provide fast, great experiences with or without whatever tools they're investing in, digital retailing or other. And it's really great. So it is a great place to park this one. So for the audience, hey, if you like it, you love it, or none of the above, we'd still love to hear from you. Dealer Insights podcast. It only gets better with comments, questions, feedback, and recommendations from you, the audience. So, hey, drop them in the comments section below, especially if you're watching this on YouTube. You can also send us questions, comments, raving reviews to info@strolid.com. That's spelled STROLID.com. And until next time, stay strong and solid, and you'll never miss. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, happy holiday, and happy Hanukkah to everybody.
Happy Merry all of it, right?
Merry all of it.